Today we are going to develop a landing page with Tailwind CSS. If you haven't seen the first part on getting started with Tailwind, please do that first, because I'm not going to explain how to install Tailwind in this video. But let's jump right into the code. Alright, so as you might remember, we did a Figma beginner course video on how to create a landing page design in Figma. And I'm going now to transform this design into an actual web page with Tailwind. And yeah, that's the design. If you haven't seen the video on how to create such a design with Figma, you can check it out at the top. But with no further ado, let's jump into our code. So that's basically the same code as from the get started video, and we are going here. So the only thing I did is I removed this button code completely again, and I imported the font which I'm using in the design, and I also got the illustration and the hero pattern, which you can see here. The rest we will build completely with Tailwind. Alright, so first of all, we need some kind of a navigation up here with 3 links, the name, and like this header bar with a background color. So let's go into our HTML, and we need a header section, and in here we need a navbar, and this navbar needs a div which contains the Stack Overflow name, and the other one contains several links. Let's just duplicate 3 links here. So that's our basic HTML structure we need at the first start. Of course, currently, if we switch to the live view here, this doesn't look very nice. Maybe add some text here. We had portfolio about me, I guess, or just about. And contact me is it, I guess. Let's take another look. Yes. All right, as you can see, let's make it bigger. We don't have any styling applied. It's just pure HTML. So what we are going to do, we need here a class, and we want this to have a background green. Let's put maybe 300 in here so that our header gets a nice green. Of course, it's not the green we have in here, but let's get to that later once we have the structure finished. So all right, we have the green. What else do we need? We need to have we need to use the flags, and that should be displayed as a row. This will cause that all the links and text is in one row here. And then we probably up here we want to have some sort of a padding. Exactly, now it's a little bit better. And of course, the links should be on the other side here. So if you look back, the links are here. The logo is on the left side, the links are on the right side. So we just need to add the justify between class, which will give us the justify between. And yeah, and then we already have a navigation. Of course, the links are too narrow together. There's no white space in between, and the heading is not as big as here. So this is a 36 font size. So let's add this to this one, this should be text X 5XL, I think. That's the text size, I guess 5XL. That looks pretty big, but I'm also zoomed in for you to see anything. So let's check. No, that's 48. Then maybe it's a 4XL. Yes, 4XL. Perfect. And now we have the problem that because this font is much bigger than this one, those elements are not centered anymore. So let's add items centered to that, and we have again centered links. Perfect. And then as well, the links should also get some classes. So they need to have a margin on the left. So ML, and let's add maybe 8 to it. And let's add this to all of them. Perfect. And then also the text color should be white. So simply add text white to the top here, and then everything should be white. Perfect. So nothing new until this point, I guess, from the get starting video. But now we will using the Tailwind Config CSS to actually use that color. So we have this 3080 483, and Tailwind offers this Tailwind Config Js. And what you can do is you go just to the documentation and you search for colors and customizing colors. Exactly. So here you get the color palette Tailwind offers out of the box, and this is already pretty good, I think. But if you really want to have a custom design, that's probably not enough for you. So what we are going to do is we are simply extending this color palette, and that's basically possible if you go to this extending the defaults. I already talked about that in the get started video, so you can always extend those attributes to extend the original settings. So let's copy this whole thing here and insert that into our Tailwind Config Js, and then let's say this is a green 450, for example. We can call it like we want. We could also say like here, that's a primary, maybe let's call primary. It's primary color. And then let's add this color to that. And all we have to do now is that we change this BG green 300 to primary. And of course we need now to rebuild the Tailwind CSS. So we also in the get started video I showed how you can create a command like that to build the Tailwind config and CSS. We need to do that right now because Tailwind will grab this element here on this JSON file, this JSON structured file, and will transform this into an actual class. And then if we go back, we see that this is already the green we are also using in the design. So perfect. Our header is basically done. Maybe not quite, since our links and text is actually not completely stretched to the side. So we need a container which is applied, and also we need to have the text bold for the links and maybe also give them a hover effect, which they don't have currently. So to do that, we simply go again into the link section here and simply type font bold. And we once again copy that. Done. And what I just said, it should be in a container, right? So in here we add also container, and then the container won't be centered by default exactly. So you can see it's just pushed here, but it's not centered. So to center it, we need the margin X and then auto. So it's margin left and right auto. And then we have a centered container here. And then as also said, we want to have a hover effect. I'm going with a simple underline effect here. And that. Nice. All right, so with no further ado, let's jump to the actual header here, or hero banner. And let's recreate this one. The fonts I will add later after this header section maybe. So let's first create this header section here. So what do we need? Let's simply rethink that. First of all, we need the main section. So what we need is we need a div, a parent div basically, which it has a container and is mx auto. And this container is now centered. And in here we will add a container for the font and for the text and button, and we also need a container for this image. So we need again two divs. One is for the font. So in here we have a h1. We will have a paragraph, and we also need a link, which will be a button. So I don't use the button here, the button element, because this will just, if you click it, it will be an anchor to the about portfolio section, to the portfolio section. So it will simply scroll down. So in here we have the text, we can copy that over. All right, and we can also copy this I'm a web developer over. Perfect. And check out my work. Well done. All right, and then also as said, we need this image. So we can add another div here, and in here we have an image later on. So let's first create this first section that we can structure that, and it's actually side by side. This parent div gets the flex column in this case. Column will structure the div elements in a column way. And this one should be, oh, I'm sorry, no, it should be row. Row is horizontal, and this one should be flex column. So the text is beneath each other. The image doesn't need anything in this case, and we again need the justify between. And then let's also import the image so we actually see something here. So it's source, and in here we need the header illustration. So it's images / header illustration. There we go, there we have it. And h1, the paragraph and the link is not styled. Since we are probably having, like, not specifically on this landing page now, but maybe later on sub pages or so, we will have maybe more h1s, more paragraphs and stuff like that. So we don't want to write the actual styles in here. So what we can do, we just use the CSS file and define with this apply. We define which classes should be always applied to an h1. So in this case, we want this to be a text size of text 7XL, which should be around 70 pixels. Then we also want this to be in the font bold, and let's see how that looks. The paragraph actually should be, is there something special we need? Yeah, the font color should be a different one. It's 6C. So let's add another color to our Tailwind config, which should be called a secondary for now. It's not the secondary color, I guess, but we can change that later. And add this one, perfect. So the paragraphs always should be text and then secondary. Again, we need to build the CSS, but before I do that, I also add a margin bottom on H1s, which should be at least 12 rem, I would say. Nice. All right, so this one is already perfect. Then we go into the button. The button should have a background color, and this background color should be, it should be that pink. But I guess Tailwind also offers a very cool pink, and this is this pink 500. So I'll just reuse that. Then we want to have the corners rounded, and we want to have a padding Y maybe 2 and padding X the double of that. And then what else? The hover effect, of course, should change the background color to should it get lighter or darker? I would say darker. And what do we have here? Maybe the 800. And I guess the text was white in that, right? Yes. So the text should be also white within the button. Not sure, did I build the CSS already? Save is safe. All right, perfect. And now you can see the button is again very large. So what we do, we add a width max, and this will add the attribute maximum width that is based on the content size. So how is it called exactly? Max content, exactly. So if I'm going to type in more text, the button will extend, and if I have less text in it, the button will decrease, or the background of the button will decrease. Perfect. And then we are missing, of course, the cursor pointer class here, so that we get also the changing cursor here. So that's our button already, that's done. What we are missing is this padding. So let's add that actually to the paragraph, and let's do a margin button 12, 10. Let's try a 10. Yeah, this looks good, I guess. Perfect. And then we also need some padding into the top, because that's like very sticked to the top. But first, also do this item center, so that our font is actually centered to the image. And then we can add some padding for the image at the top. So I'm going to move this whole section a little bit down, and because we are inserting the background image, to the background here. As you can see, this should be stretched more than the container. We need actually the container on another level. But actually, we need another wrapper for this whole background. Background image, and for background images, Tailwind also offers something which I'm going to show in a second after I added a padding Y, and let's do 32, I'm sorry. I guess that's perfect. If we zoom out for a second to see the actual size, it would look like that. The only thing, and we will adjust that as well, as you can see, the container's actually more narrowed than what we have here. So this is more stretched to the right, and my screen is also has a really high resolution. So we are going to limit that in a second. But let's first add this background color. And for that, again, we use the Tailwind config file. And if you search here for background image, then you click on customize. And what Tailwind offers here as well is this extend attribute for background images. And this is pretty cool because you can add now in this extend attribute, you go in and let's remove this footer here. Image. What you can do now is adding a hero pattern background image. And we have a PNG here. It's not optimal, but it is what it is. And if you add images like that, all you have to do with Tailwind is to use that as BG hero pattern. All right, there we go. And now you have this background image. You can leave it like that. It's working, I guess, since it's repeating currently. If you don't want it to get repeated, you can also add the standard ways. So let's add BG cover, which will make sure that this background image is always stretched to the whole background space. Then we do a BG no repeat, so we don't repeating the background image. And then BG center, so we position it to the center, otherwise it's positioned at the left side, top left. And there we go, you have a different kind of background here. And if we reduce it, it actually doesn't really look that good, I think. So I'm going with actually the repeating background. I think that looked better. I think that works better than the one before and doesn't hurt. Perfect. So now we have the button, we have the text. The only thing we are missing now is that our container is actually wider than the one in the design. So let's change that. And for that, we are simply going to break points. And here you get the breakpoints which are added by default. And we want to override that because currently the biggest breakpoint, or like this, the container size, is 1536. But our design, this is only 1258 max. What we need to do is we need to copy that one over. And you actually also can rename the screen sizes. So if you don't like those SM, MD, LG, XL namings, you can also just go with tablet, laptop, or I don't know, any name you want. So in the Tailwind config, again, we are not going to go to the extend because we want actually to override the value. So we add this one to this as its own attribute, which is screens. And in here, we'll just simply remove the last breakpoint in that case. So our container won't be 1500 and what was it? 1500 pixels wide. It will be only just 1280 pixels. So let's rebuild the CSS, and there we go. Our container is more narrow. You know what? I think if we don't use the wrapping div container here and just simply use it like that, and then adding the BG cover, BG no repeat, and what was it? BG center. Exactly, I think that looks better. It's not that like disturbing. The background is more subtle and not that disturbing. And if you already recognized it, what I did is, since we limited the container to 1280 pixels now, our font or our H1 is actually also now breaking into a new line. What we actually want in this design to create like those stairs or whatever you want to call it. All right, so that's the header section, and I guess I'm also running already at 30 minutes or even longer. So let's wrap this up with importing the font. So let's go into here. So we have the Nunito black and light and everything. You find that font in it's a Google font basically. So adding custom fonts is basically the normal CSS way. So you're adding it in here, and then you say like font family should be Nunito. And then you're adding your font, and what do we need? We need what we are using in the design actually. That's the bold, regular. Okay, so we need only the bold and regular for now. So let's add bold. So that's in. Okay, so if we add that, and of course the regular one. So if we have that, we can go again to Tailwind and search for font family. And in here you have the default fonts as always at the top, which Tailwind uses. And then if you go to customize, you can add the font family, give it a name, and add the name of your font family. You also can use the extend as always, but since we don't even need to use the ones from Tailwind, let's just override the ones from Tailwind. Okay, so all we need to do is to import the font then, if we have added it to our CSS as a normal font face, font family, the source of the font, give it a name, and then go to the Tailwind Config Js, add this font family attribute, go to Nunito, or give it a name. I called it now Nunito bold and Nunito regular. Type in the Nunito font name you used in your CSS font family name. If you want, you can also add the fallbacks. There we go. I missed in my import, I missed an F. Always double check if you have the ending of your files correct. All right, so we have imported our font. we have built a button, we have added a background image, we have added an image, we have a header section with links. Okay, so let's add one last thing, the link. So we probably will use links more often, not only in the header, but maybe also somewhere in the content or down here or whatever. To simplify that here, I also showed that in the get started one. We just go in here and create a custom class named link, add the apply, and then add our classes to it. And then we just go in and call that link, and then we get rid of all the Tailwind classes in here. If you are using, like, this makes sense now because I have to rewrite the link and I also have to rewrite the classes then. If you're using a boilerplate tool or anything like, let's say PHP or whatever, you could create, of course, a link component where you would have to write the classes only once, because you would have to write the link itself only once, and then pass in the link itself and the text for the link as an attribute or whatever. In that case, it doesn't make sense really to put those into an external class, because you would have to write the component anyway only once. But if you want to, or if you don't use any boilerplates and just build a simple website, it makes sense to use a custom class, I think, because then you only have to write one class into your HTML to reproduce all of those classes. And as you can see, it's still working, it's the same. It's just delivered in a different way. And what Tailwind is actually doing is it will add those attributes, the attributes of the utility classes. It will get added to the custom class you are adding. Yeah, and that's it for the first part. I don't want to stretch it too much because we are already, like, I guess 45 minutes in. In the next part, and this will go faster since we already have the ground design, the ground components and colors imported and everything. We will build the rest of the landing page the next time. Yeah, I hope you learned something new. I hope I could explain how Tailwind works and show you a bit of that. And yeah, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss the next part of that. And in the meanwhile, you could watch this video or maybe that video. Bye. Yeah, of course we need to rebuild the CSS if you paid attention. Okay, so now, what's missing?